Hello and welcome, everyone. I'm Ryan Heckman, the CEO of Rallyday Partners, and this is the Founders Journey podcast. We'll explore the heart and soul of great founders and their journey to build the company of their dreams. You will learn about new industries and business models while discovering how to apply the founder's mindset to your everyday work and life. Okay, I am so excited. Rallyday Partners' inaugural podcast, the Founders Journey podcast here, coming to you from Denver, Colorado, and I'm joined by Kenny Goldman, who is the CEO and co-founder of Kicksaw, Rallyday Partners' most recent investment that we closed at the end of December of 23. Kenny, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah, we actually tried to do this last week, and one of your children was sick, and I hope she's feeling better, or he rather.
Yeah, he's back in daycare. When kids not feeling well and out of daycare, it takes up a lot of time and energy. So we're back into the swing of things, thankfully.
Well, you look like you're at full strength. We have an expression here at Rallyday that the objective is professional, but the journey is personal. That's one of the reasons that we like the notion of calling our podcast the Founder's Journey, because it is a very personal, very excruciating, courageous journey that our founders are on, and we love to support. And what a perfect first here. Kenny only started his business in 2018, and in a short time has become one of Salesforce's highest quality emerging players as an implementer. Kenny will tell us a bit more about what that means. But if you don't mind, Kenny, because we're going to focus as much on the personal side here as the professional side, maybe give us a little bit of your background. I mean, 2-3 minute version of how you got to where you are and what some of the biggest steps were along the way.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So background, family immigrated to Canada from Israel. I was born in Israel at a very young age. Family immigrated to Israel from Russia or USSR back in the day, a long time ago. So roots are Europe, Middle East, and came to Canada. Mom was a teacher. Dad was an entrepreneur too. Started a company when he came to Canada and had a pretty great life growing up. Middle income, never really had to worry about money. We had the opportunity to travel a lot, but I always felt a desire and eagerness to want to just explore new things, try new things, work, get out in the market. So I started working when I was very young. And I think that's a function of just seeing my dad work and be out there. So I started working when I was 14, below the legal age of working, telemarketer. And the first thing they said to me is, Kenny, you've got to pretend you're a girl because no one will believe that you're a guy when you're calling people. So I did that for a couple of years until I was able to get a real retail job and started working. But a lot of my upbringing was just seeing my parents work really hard. They were always around, but they also wanted to deliver a great life for their family. And that meant working and doing their things. So it was a big element of what I witnessed growing up and kind of bled into my work habits and beliefs.
That's an amazing story, kind of the immigrant story in many ways.
Absolutely.
Very inspiring. I asked the deal team at Rallyday for some words to describe Kenny Goldman. So I hope this doesn't make you blush, but these were literally, I'm just reading off the phone here. Measured, thoughtful, discerning, intensely focused, obsessive about the customer experience, has an eye towards elevating the entire industry that you work with. You view what you do as a craft versus a job. One of your colleagues said that you're a human first leader, deeply empathetic, cares deeply about the employee experience. Another one of your colleagues just used the word bold, that you have this unique combination of characteristics where you're both incredibly humble, but also aggressive and bold with your vision. So I guess, given your background, it would make sense. That's how I think you might describe how your parents were role models for you. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
100%. I think it's a function of how it's a mix of my beliefs, which are a combination overlapping of there's just this desire feeling of like, why not? Why can't you? And I'll give you an example. In my third year of university, I actually started working at a startup full time. And I moved all my classes to evenings or early in the morning or online classes. And everyone thought I was crazy. How are you going to do that? Manage a full-time job and continue in college. Did that in third year and fourth year. Made a lot of money at that age. And at the same time, got my best grades that I ever got in college in my third and fourth years. And it's just this desire of like, why can't I do it? Why are these social constructs? Why do they exist and they prevent people from trying new things or failing or veering out into elements or areas that people don't often go into? And so this constant desire of just looking at things as barriers and asking why do they exist? Why can't we traverse them? Why can't we try new things? Has always been a deep philosophy of mine and core. I just believe that a lot of the constructs that exist today are just a function of people not testing the waters or trying or having confidence or fear of failure, whatever it might be. And then secondarily, I think life is fragile. We hear stories all the time, unfortunate and circumstances and things happen. One day your life changes overnight. And so this constant desire of go through life with humility and compassion, treat people well, treat people the way you want to be treated. And I think people tend to respond well that way. And it makes things, I don't want to say harder, but it adding that emotional element certainly introduces complexity in some areas. I think it simplifies in other areas, but I've compared myself to other leaders, or I've seen how other leaders operate, or I've been in environments where I've had bosses and they've been coined assholes and they're not fun to work with. They're not there to support others. And I just don't think you get the best out of people that way. I don't think people operate well. And I think it's a tough way to live when other people have to walk on eggshells around you.
That's well said. Well, speaking of courage, why don't you tell us a little bit about the formation story for Kicksaw along with your partner, Kyle Morris? I think I've heard it twice, but both times I learned something a little bit new. So Tell us how you had the courage to kind of make the leap, and then why you chose the Salesforce ecosystem, and what were you trying to build back in 2018, and has that changed at all since?
Sure. So the story, unsurprisingly, is not one that's linear or organic. I met Kyle when I was working full-time in-house as a sales ops manager, and he was consulting on the side, contracting, and I got engaged with Kyle and we started operating together. He has a background in the military. He's the one with the real courage, doing a couple tours in the Middle East. But Kyle had a just approach to consulting, which was just focus on adding value and helping solve problems, and not trying to focus too heavily on things like the contract or elements of a statement of work, but just how do we move the business forward? And that seemed to resonate with me because I was trying to move the business forward. So I met him when I was there. I ended up leaving that job and joining another job. And I got connected with Kyle again, and he said, "Hey, I'm doing some contracting work, more than I can possibly manage myself. Do you want to work with me?" And so I started moonlighting evenings, 8, 9 p.m. to 1 a.m. And I did that for 1 month, and it was an amazing experience. I loved working with Kyle. I loved solving problems. I loved working in the Salesforce environment, working with fast-growing tech companies. So I ended up quitting my job after 1 month of doing that with him. We had never met in person at this time. Super important to mention that. I was getting checks mailed to my house, and they were cashing. So I'm like, okay, let's see how far this thing goes. And we did that for about 7, 8 months. And it almost felt like I was living this double life where I was with my fiance at the time, and she's like, "I don't know who Kyle is. I don't know what you're doing." And similarly with him, his wife had no idea who I was, but it was working well. We had a great relationship. We would talk for hours on the phone. We would help customers. Customers loved working with us. It felt natural. And Kyle and I both come from environments where we worked in startups that had very aspirational and aggressive goals. And you're on that treadmill. When you're in that VC world of A, B, C, IPO, public, get acquired, whatever it might be. And we just felt that was the cause of a lot of burnout or stress or anxieties. And we both believe that work, it doesn't have to be mutually exhaustive. You don't have to kill yourself to make money, and you can still make a lot of money and operate in a well-organized fashion. And so those were our core beliefs when we started Kicksaw and going on this journey was, how do we create a company that we want to work at for the next 30 years? How do we create a company that other people want to work at in the next 30 years that allows them to make a lot of money in their career? It doesn't prevent them from doing that, but still gives them the work-life balance that they're looking for so they can prioritize their family, their friends, their mental, their physical health above work. That work is an additive to their lives. It helps make them happier. They get career opportunities. They get personal opportunities as a result of work. And Salesforce was our vehicle to do that. It's what we knew the best. It's what we love doing. It's where our passion lies. It's how we can get a glimpse into how businesses operate. And so we wanted to combine the ability to create a place that people love to live and work at, and solve really complex, interesting, fun problems through Salesforce.
And tell us a bit about the Salesforce ecosystem. I mean, I'm not a technologist, as you know, and you'll probably snicker as I say that. My partner and fellow founder, Nancy Phillips, is way more qualified for this type of conversation. But pretend you're talking to me, fairly primitive in the technology world. Tell us what Kicksaw does, and tell us why you all do it better. Like what would one of your customers say when they're bragging about your work?
Yeah, I talk to customers every single day, so I feel qualified to discuss this. And I'll start with that, which are, I think our customers would tell us that we're a partner, that we're aligned to their success and their outcomes, which is super important when you work with a partner, an agency, whatever that may be. And what I always like to tell our employees, our customers, is if you want to understand someone's behaviors, take a look at their incentives, right? Because that drives behaviors. You see this all the time with basic things like sales compensation. Are you compensating sales reps on a monthly basis, quarterly basis, or annual basis? If it's annual, they're going to go in the last 60 days and try to crush their goals. If it's monthly, every single month at the end of the month, they're going to focus on hitting their goals. And so the incentives align to their behaviors. And so that's one core belief that we have. Another thing that we've seen in just the overall world and consumerization of how people are going to market in technology is a people first, a customer first mentality. You see companies like Amazon promoting this, but I always like to relate what we do a little bit like Netflix, and compare Netflix with a more traditional approach, your cable company, Comcast, whatever it might be. And then I'll get to how this all relates to Kicksaw in a moment. But if you just imagine your relationship between Comcast and your relationship between Netflix, it's almost like that commercial. You've got the two, the devil and the angel on your shoulder, right? I ask people all the time, how many times have you ever had to call into Netflix's customer support line? And it's zero. I've never met a person, a customer, prospect, employee that's ever had to engage with Netflix customer support. It's so great. How often has Netflix ever been down when you open the app? Zero. How many times have you had a problem with Comcast and your cable and billing issues and whatever it might be over the last 3 to 5 years? Plenty of times. And I believe a core function of that is because Netflix bills their subscribers primarily on a month-to-month basis. And so their behaviors are, how do we keep them coming back to our platform? How do we keep them happy so they continue to pay us? Even if they don't watch for a month or two, they will still subscribe to us because we deliver so much value throughout the course of the year. And so I wanted to model our delivery methodology off of that approach, which is how do we align our interests with our customers' interests? Not utilization-based where we focus on billing our customer 40 hours a week, because our customers don't care about being billed 40 hours a week. They care about outcomes. So what drives Kicksaw differently is our billing model and our approach to partnering with customers. Most consulting companies will bill their customers on a fixed bid project. And I think that's flawed because it doesn't focus on the outcomes or objectives. It focuses on documenting and codifying the discussions that have previously had. But businesses are dynamic, requirements evolve, and you're not getting a partner. You're getting a firm to come in and produce what's been built on that statement of work and then move on or produce another change order. At Kicksaw, our month-to-month billing model allows us to be flexible and nimble and say, okay, you're changing your direction, or you're acquiring a company, or the macroeconomic trends are asking you to move in a different direction. Great, we're here to be your partner and move in that direction with you and add value throughout that process. So that month-to-month model incentivizes our team to focus on outcomes and adding value and creating a longer engagement with our clients, not just on billing every single day or week or month, which we have to do inevitably, but that's simply a means to an end, not the end.
That's interesting. It sort of reminds me, I know you have a young family, and it an analog might just be that, when you have a baby for the first time, like getting an instruction manual and trying to sit down with your partner and writing down all the things that you're going to agree to do as a parent for the next 18 years. It would be really hard. Inevitably, you would miss some stuff along the way. And I say, compare that to just committing as a partnership that you're going to love this baby and prepare that child for a great life, and all the things that happen and your behaviors, they're going to produce that outcome, are going to be much more agile and much more aligned with, reality. And it's interesting that you point out this conundrum, I guess you could say, of statements of work. And I wonder how much of that is driven by just a lack of trust on the part of the client, saying, okay, I'm going to pay this much money. Tell me what you're going to do. I want to be able to, hold your feet to the fire. How are you able to undo that sort of trap and build on a foundation of trust that gives you more latitude to work together as opposed to on different sides of the table?
It's a great point. And I think every client we engage with has this artificial barrier of like, I've been burned before, or I've been in engagement with a consultant where it went sideways. And so we're dealing with an industry that it's prevalent, where they've had bad experiences with agency or consulting partners. That's what's universal amongst so many different industries or ecosystems with respect to systems integration. And I think the best way to do it is to win our customers one by one over time and understand what works and how to implement that across the organization. We can't go all out and do this, but we initially started with a team of just 2 people, and now we're a team of just under 80 people, and we've gotten more efficient at doing that. We've gotten more efficient at building value, adding value immediately, and building that trust and that rapport with the clients. And the saying that I always tell the team is, the experience is the product. So at the first time you get on a call with a client, they're doing their sniff test, and they're going to take the first 30 seconds to evaluate, can you help me with this project? Are you the right team? Do you have the right confidence, the right domain expertise? Are you organized? Did you come in with an agenda? All of these things are going through the client's head, subconsciously or consciously, to evaluate, are you going to help solve my problems and make me look good in front of my boss and help the business move forward and understand their problems? And so we have to approach every single conversation, every single email, every single engagement, remembering that every experience that someone has with Kicksaw is their impression of Kicksaw. And it takes one bad experience to create an amazing, to ruin an amazing experience that they've had with us. And so every touch point has to be pristine. And it's taken us a lot of effort to build that up and try to standardize it. And it's hard to grow really quickly and assimilate people to how we like to operate and be customer focused, while also building in some of the growing pains and challenges around our delivery methodology. So there's no clear linear path. It's that messy middle of identify a problem, solve for it, identify a problem, solve for it, and really trying to close that feedback loop and move as quickly as we possibly can.
It's interesting, you go to your website and you're one of the few businesses that starts describing their business first with an answer to the who. Who are you? Who are the people at Kicksaw? You talk a lot about, why you're doing what you're doing, how you're going to do it, and only later do you actually find out what you do. And I noticed that in all your announcements, you always start with the who. And then the other thing that resonates for me is your sort of 4, more than catchphrases. They're basically like, if you want to be successful at Kicksaw, this is how you do it. And it's basically be you, own it, work together, and simple wins. Tell us a little bit, how did you and Kyle end up with those kind of 4 keys to success, if you will? It seems very authentic. Tell us how you guys got to 4 and only 4, and kind of how you ingrain that in your larger organization now that you've grown so much.
Yeah, I think one of the blessings of Kicksaw has been Kyle and I have, while we have different personalities and different approaches to things, we have very similar beliefs. And it's made our relationship really strong and allowed us to operate without necessarily relying so heavily on each other, but being able to own our own respective areas of the business and tackle certain problems. So what I would say is, when we started the business, we didn't have core values. We had a set of beliefs in our head and ways we wanted to operate. As we started to grow the organization, we started to realize, how do we get what's in our head, what we believe, what we feel every single day, and communicate this to the team in a manner that allows them to comprehend what we're after, allows them to push it down to the clients and make sure the clients feel how we operate, and embed that in all the problems they have. Because we're now starting to experience new problems that we didn't previously experience, going from 2 employees to 8 to 25. And we're not always going to be there to answer those problems or solve those problems. So how do we create a framework that allows us to address them in a way that Kyle and I would think about addressing them? And so these core values allow us to communicate how we like to operate, what's important to us. And it was a function of our director of people ops, Joanne, who's fantastic, by the way, coming into the business and really helping Kyle and I get this stuff down on paper, and being the advocate for how we want to treat people, being the advocate for how we want Kicksaw to be represented to our stakeholders, employees, and customers alike, and forcing us to do this exercise, because it's not something that Kyle and I would have done naturally, in getting it down on paper. So Joanne spearheaded it with Kyle. Naturally, we have a million things, but you can't have 25 core values. You can't have 15 core values. And so how do we keep it simple? How do we have few but still communicate a lot at the same time? And it's a function of how we want people to operate every single day, and how we want people to behave in front of our customers, how we want people to feel at Kicksaw. And so culminate in those 4 core values.
You're one of the few entrepreneurs that just seems to have such an intuitive sense of what we would just call the scalability of culture. And oftentimes when we invest in an organization, these cultures are really good. I mean, they're built from the inside out. Typically, the founder drives the employees towards a way of living and being that is consistent with their sense of purpose and calling. And yet, time and again, we find that as the companies grow, you sort of lose that connection to the founder and therefore to the cultural essence of the organization. Other than, and by the way, Joanne is amazing, but other than complimenting her, or what do you think contributed to having that instinct to know that, cultures at scale are very, very difficult to execute?
They are. It's a great point. The way I define culture, and I've seen this defined on the internet similarly, is it's a representation of your actions over the last 45 days. And what I like about that is it's not something that we documented 4 years ago. It's, what have you done recently? Show me your actions you've taken over the last 45 days, from how you hire people, how you fire people, how you treat customers, how you treat mistakes, how you ask people to take leaps of faith, and how you encourage failure, all these types of things. I think it comes from a deep belief that Kyle and I have, which are the only way to operate in business is just to treat people well. That doesn't mean we don't have expectations or accountable or like to work hard or have work ethics or have goals and aspirations. You just don't have to be an asshole. And that's kind of one of the things that we tell people all the time, is we just have no assholes at Kicksaw. And we promote failure and we promote learning. And I think these things are very scalable, but it's not something that you can just say once or twice and hope that it permeates across the organization. I repeat myself a million times a day to every single person in the company. I talk to everyone at Kicksaw, whether it be every 3 months or 6 months. I try to engage with every single person at some point in time, whether it's at the retreat, it doesn't really matter. But continuously ensure that our messages are being said, that our directors are very clear on what the expectations are and how they should be communicating open feedback and trying to communicate expectations of what we're hearing from the team. It's a multifaceted problem. And I think it's core to Kyle and I that this is how we operate. There's no other way to operate. Doesn't matter if we're 20 people or 2,000 people. We don't have to treat people poorly. Maybe they're not a fit at Kicksaw. Maybe maybe they're moving on for another reason, whatever it may be. We can still create an environment where people can be successful, where people can be themselves, and we can treat people well. And I think that's just a function of, it's just a core belief that we have.
Interesting. You have always struck me as a lifelong learner, and One of the things that we look for in the founders of the companies where we invest is just this growth mentality, growth mindset. And kind of one of our, I guess, dreams is that you as a CEO, your executive team and your employees have a chance to grow as much during our participation as the business. In other words, Kenny in 2018 has grown as much as the business, kind of from your character set to your skill set to the way you show up. Can you just briefly talk about how you have evolved from when you all started getting checks in the mail and not seeing each other those many years ago to today? What are some areas that you feel like as a leader you've grown the most as you've grown the business?
There's areas where I've made investments intentionally, and there's areas where I feel like they're very organic and struggled. So I'll try to kind of compartmentalize them as best as possible. The easiest one has been making actual investments in certain areas. So I've got an exec coach. I've gotten a speaking coach. I've made investments in some of those areas for kind of elements of tangible impacts that have helped me grow in certain areas, and how to communicate to an audience and how to get up on stage and feel comfortable and how to think about delivering a message or a presentation. So there's been areas like that that I've made investments in. And I think if people can, they should take those opportunities and do them. Even as simple as like getting a guitar coach, right? Doesn't have to be professional. Like learning an instrument helps take my mind off things and relieve stress and those things as well. Secondary is I've become a huge proponent of mentors and people to lean on. And I actually think a huge aspect of Kicksaw's success has been a function of me expanding my mentor network and being able to rely on others that have done it or experienced things and can help push back on my ideas or help brainstorm with me or give me different perspectives or help me see things differently or just provide advice that I wouldn't otherwise know. And to me, this is almost similarly to some people love to read books and listen to podcasts and things like that. And I like to do that as well. But I also like to talk to people and ask questions and have deep conversations. And that's my form of learning. That's my form of how do I pick up on concepts? How do I talk to someone who's been a CTO? And I don't know how to do that. I'm not going to go read a book on engineering or things like that, but someone who's built out an engineering team and how they think about that and what goes into that process. And the last thing that I frankly love and will continue to do, and I feel like I'll continue to do over this journey, is just more organic learning. I don't know what it's like to run a company with 250 employees and deliver a message to that. I don't know what it's like to have a C-level executive team and all these things. So a lot of firsts. And the way I look at that is, some people at Kicksaw love to go mountain biking. Some people love to go cave diving. Some people have their own fix. My fix is getting uncomfortable and running a business and starting a company. That's where my risk tolerance is. I don't go mountain biking. I don't go skydiving. I go build companies and try hard shit. And that's my version of doing those things. And so that's where, you don't go learn mountain biking with a coach. You just go do it and you try it. You don't go skiing. You may start with an instructor, but you just go do it many times over and over, and you practice and you get in there and you do it over and over again. And I apply that same concept to building a company and managing people and doing all the difficult things that come with starting and growing a company.
Well, that brings us to kind of the present in some ways. As we indicated in the introduction, Rallyday only became your partner at the end of December last year. In so many words, can you describe where you and Kyle were, I'd say spiritually, where the business was objectively, and what was going through your mind as you considered your alternatives and bringing in private equity or not, and just kind of walk us through that, and then maybe talk about why you chose private equity as a vessel for your growth opportunity and maybe Rallyday in particular, without it being a commercial, of course, please.
So Kyle and I had always started Kicksaw with the desire to just start and run a company that provides a living for us and our families and the people that work at Kicksaw. And we want to grow it. We have aggressive, ambitious desires to grow this and change and transform how consulting is done, and to give people a great place to work and live. But what we started to realize is the hedonic treadmill started to get quicker and things start to move, is we have an amazing opportunity in front of us. And what we could accomplish in 5 or 7 years could potentially be done in 3 to 5 years, and still allows us to stay true to our core beliefs. But it gives us access to a level of resources that we don't currently have today, and a change in paradigm shift. Being bootstrapped founders, the first thought you have in mind is how our resources are scarce. How can we save up for a rainy day? How can we make calculated decisions and not take big bets because we don't have a team to support us behind the scenes, or we don't have an executive team? We didn't really have a board prior to Rallyday, right? And so we wanted to explore what that could look like. Naturally, I had, and Kyle and everyone we talked to has preconceived notions around investors and PE groups and things like that. And so
all of which are really positive, right?
Exactly. And so we truly went into the process being skeptical and saying to ourselves, we will very likely walk out of this not having found a partner. And we've just got to continue to chug along and move quicker and faster and continue to invest in our people and grow this company. And we're prepared to do that. And through the process, of course, we had the chance to get to know Rallyday. And what we realized was we walked out of that meeting and we were like, that was actually good. Not only was it like mediocre, not only did it seem like we connected, we got value from that meeting. We learned something. We felt like they connected with us. And you don't always get that out of these meetings, right? I was telling people they'd go through our financial spreadsheets with like a scalpel, right? And what's this dollar and what's that dollar? And it wasn't like that with Rallyday. And we walked out thinking we were going to get investors, and we walked in thinking we were going to get investors. We walked out thinking we have partners. And that's what really changed our mind shift to say, there's actually an organization out there that believes in us, believes in our mission, and we can leverage their expertise, their resources, we can grow quicker, and we can do so by still maintaining our core beliefs and values. So all those variables combined really allowed us to ultimately get to this point. But we were certainly skeptical in what that looked like. And I felt that Rallyday really truly cared about the people as much as we did in creating a great experience for them, and growth as much as we did. So it was a really perfect combination of beliefs and values that ultimately resulted in the partnership.
Yeah, I mean, from the reciprocal standpoint, when you all were visiting us, I felt like, our why was to disrupt or otherwise transform positively the private equity experience for founders, and really throw the old rule book away and, spend the next 10 years building a platform that could be more valuable and more true to the founder spirit. We're 4 or 5 years into that. And it's just so interesting that you all were doing the same thing in consulting and Salesforce implementations. And so, I don't know, we felt like we were kindred spirits in terms of the journeys that we had been on in parallel with one another. And I think that's why there may have been the connection that there was. It's just that we both kind of have far exceeded our expectations in terms of where we've gotten, but aren't even close to where we want to be in terms of really changing the industry that we're operating in. And we felt that from you all so strongly that we were pretty much willing to do anything to become your partner. And we've had a great time since. Why don't you talk a bit about what you've done with the Rallyday team after closing? I mean, maybe TMI, but I had a private equity partner in the business that I built. And like 2 weeks after we closed, we were in a conference room for about 7 hours, dissecting or using a scalpel, your words, gross margin and volume. And I mean, it was just, I don't know, I felt like 2 weeks after close, I was doing due diligence again, and I was like, is this really what this is going to be like? And it was. I mean, that was, it never changed. It was like that about every, 3 or 4 weeks. We at Rallyday have tried very hard to change that experience, particularly in the first 6 months, so that we're adding value and creating trust more rapidly. We do that through our program called RAP, which is Rallyday Accelerator Program, kind of a mouthful. But talk to us about that, not from an investor standpoint, Kenny, but from a founder and CEO and now leader of leaders.
Yeah, I'll say one thing very quickly just about the previous comment, which are a lot of people said, hey, you've got to get along with your investors. You've got to have a good relationship with them. You don't have to be friends with them, but you have to be able to, get in a board meeting or have a conversation with them. And I'm always like, why does it have to be so shitty? Why can't I be friends with the investors? Like, why does it have to be just an amicable, somewhat amicable relationship? And I felt like the relationship with Rallyday really broke that mold. And we can have a relationship where we get to know people on a personal level and we get to like who we work with. We don't just have to tolerate each other. So that was a big element of it as well, too, which are Kyle and I believe that life's too short to just have to tolerate the people you work with and go through your day. And so that's what really also informed our decision-making process. But with the RAP program, so frankly, it's been phenomenal because what it's done is it's allowed us to bring the team together. And I got this feedback from one of our directors on the last session in a format that's facilitated with structure that feels like it's been thought through and intentional and allows us to think about our business in ways we've never thought about it before, and allows us to expand the time horizon from just thinking about it from months or quarters into years, allows us to look at the end in mind and start to say, well, where do we want to be as an organization the next 5 years, and understand how everyone is going to contribute to that goal. So it's exposed us to questions and processes that we've never done before. It's frankly taken some of that work off my plate and allowed me to focus on creating the strategy versus helping to facilitate discussions around creating the strategy, which has been phenomenal. And it's given me personally, and I know the other members as well, but me personally, I feel like a mentor, but also just someone that I can talk to, and Nancy, of course, and others too, but just someone that I can lean on and get advice with really quickly, that's been there and done that a million times and seemingly knows the answer to every problem that I have, but delivers it in a way that doesn't make me feel stupid. So it's been phenomenal to feel like I have a cheat code in my back pocket to access that. And perfect example is we didn't talk about financials for the first 6 or 8 weeks. We just talked about the business and asked questions and wanted to learn. And I really felt that Rallyday was making a concerted effort to try to get engaged and involved. And naturally, I wanted to talk about the financials so that we could start to understand how we shape and do these things. But I never felt pressured or forced. What I felt was a good relationship to discuss the business and how we're progressing and where we want to make efforts and bets and investments and what's our goal? What's our vision? What do we want to do? And try to extract that out of us and put it down so that we can communicate it to the broader team. So it's been really insightful. It's been thought-provoking. It's been cathartic in some senses. And it's given me a renewed light into the future and what our opportunities are, and made me think bigger than I thought we ever could.
Yeah, the muse for that program was really thinking about it from a football game or some sporting event where you just get that time to get off the field, assess kind of what went right and what went wrong in the first half, and make adjustments so that the second half is even better. And also just give that founder that sense of almost like closure, like, okay, I'm turning this chapter. We've got a new chapter. Let's write it from the end first, and then get to today. And also like help bring your team along. A lot of founders describe their journeys as being a little bit lonely, and their teams are just busy with the day-to-day business every day. And just taking that time together to look inward, both on a personal level and an organizational level, and start putting together a plan for the future with your new partner. We just think that co-creation process creates trust that will fuel us and also help us overcome the certain challenges that we know we're going to encounter. I mean, you talked about sloppy start, well, messy middles and everything in between. But if we get off on the right foot, build a good foundation from a relational standpoint, it just makes it makes the partnership more effective. We usually start with purpose. And I think, Kenny, you got to meet Haley Rushing, who's one of our architects here. That's usually a highlight, at least for me. I try to attend those sessions every time. I always learn something. Talk to us a little bit. Our RAP program goes purpose, strategy, culture, and then we talk about some leadership development stuff. I think right now you're through purpose, through culture. Is that about right? Tell us a little bit like what you've learned in each of those areas.
Absolutely. I think the biggest takeaway is the ingredients of Kicksaw, the culture, the way we operate, the way we think, how we engage with people, our policies, they're not accidents. They're a function oftentimes of the belief of the founders that more often than not don't actually get explicitly communicated to people. And you have to kind of pull them out, or they somehow make their way throughout the lifeblood of the company in some form or fashion. But you're often, and I've felt this too, people are, I've expected people to almost read my mind and know how I want to operate in certain situations. And what I've walked away with this, the purpose work and the culture work, is so much of Kicksaw are the beliefs and values that Kyle and I have. It's how we want to operate. It's how we want to treat other people. It's how we want to live our lives. It's how we want to do work with our clients. But we've never taken the time to explicitly document it and go through our thoughts and say why those things, and what are the outcomes we want as a result of them, and how do we want people to behave because of our beliefs. So the purpose work has given us an opportunity to not only flush these thoughts out, get them on paper, but allow our team to contribute as well, because we want this to be not just a company that Kyle and I run, but a company with a strong leadership team that are part of creating the company and the philosophies of the company, because they can disseminate that down and continue with the vision. So the purpose work has allowed us to understand, why do we do what we do? What drives us? What motivates us? What fuels us? And I'm super, super passionate. I love getting to work. I love working on work. I love everything that I do and talk to everyone at work and all our customers and engaging with Rallyday. I love my family more, but I love work, right? And that's exactly the purpose, which is I love to work because I love the opportunity it gives for my family. I love the learning I get from it. I love the everything that it provides. And the purpose work allows us to really just solidify that, codify that, and communicate to people, because it's so hard to get that message out in a succinct, concise manner and allow people to see who we truly are, especially as we grow. And so I think it's been a really good job at allowing us to convey these things to people in the organization and help them understand how we want them to think, and almost to root out elements of our culture that don't believe in those things. If people don't want to treat people compassionately or with humility, Kicksaw is not the right place for them. That's okay. But go find another place, because that's just not how we're going to operate with our customers or our team.
Yeah. Spoken like a true founder. In strategy, have you guys done your strategy module yet, or is that still coming?
We're halfway through it. So we did our first session. We've got another session lined up next month.
Okay. And just briefly on the Salesforce ecosystem, which, I think a lot of our listeners will know this already, but, Salesforce, the CRM product, is almost ubiquitous right now in corporate world. But they bought Tableau for the business logic and the
analytics portion, all
analytic, yeah, and of course Slack more recently. And it would appear, just from my primitive seat at the table, that Salesforce is almost building what could be considered a real bona fide rival to Microsoft in terms of putting these ecosystems together. Tell us a little bit about where you think Salesforce is going and how Kicksaw is meeting, their needs. Obviously, a very important stakeholder.
Absolutely. We're blessed at Kicksaw with a TAM that's huge. Salesforce is a multi-$100 billion company. The services industry is a multiple of that, closing in on $1 trillion industry. And so that gives us a ton of room for growth and opportunity out there, and a ton of adjacent ecosystems and integrations and problems to solve and customers to work with. And I think that's a big function of our growth, because if we don't have a big TAM, there's not much fish in the sea for us to get. But we're blessed with a really big market, and they're the largest enterprise software company in the world. So we've got a lot of opportunities there. Salesforce continues to acquire companies. You said Slack and Tableau, and they just acquired Spiff, compensation management. They're acquiring companies all the time. They're looking for ways to grow. They have hundreds of different SKUs out there, and they have a lot of customers that are looking to maximize their investment and grow their businesses. And I think that's where the opportunity lies, is how customers can better utilize Salesforce throughout their ecosystem of products and different roles and personas in the company, how it ties to other products in their ecosystem as well. I think Salesforce is making a huge push, and they're not quiet about it, into AI. They're having a ton of investments in their Einstein products, GPT products, Gen AI, all of that type of stuff. It's just where the whole industry is going, quite frankly. But they've done a good job of really trying to take over different aspects of an organization, from communications with Slack to analytics with Tableau, and other use cases as well for other acquisitions that they've made. So there's a ton of opportunity. And I think the power of being successful in the Salesforce ecosystem is specializing, is finding where you play and where you operate really well. Because no business in healthcare or financial services is going to want to work with a partner that doesn't understand how those businesses operate, the regulatory elements of them, how they get compensated, who their employees are, their roles, and how their customers operate. If you don't know that type of stuff, how are you going to build the engine that supports it? It's kind of like, being someone who, is in manufacturing, but they build electronics, and then trying to take that same logic and apply it to building a plane. You're in manufacturing, right? You know technology, but building a plane is very different than building a laptop. So it doesn't transfer as well. So implementing Salesforce in financial services for an RIA and helping them understand how they do account management planning for their 401k is very different than doing insurance verification for a provider in the Northeast. Same product, but that's the power of Salesforce. That can do both of those things exceptionally well. But I think you find success as a systems integrator in Salesforce by specializing and knowing what you're good at and building those capabilities really well in areas that you want to play.
Yeah, and I mean, you get to an interesting point about strategic planning being as much about what you don't do as what you choose to do in the future. And I know you're only halfway through this, but where do you think there's a future at Kicksaw where you're doing a combination of sector expansion outside of your core healthcare technology into other industry verticals? Maybe there's a geographic component. Speak to that a little bit. Of course, early thinking, and then how do you migrate within Salesforce? Say if you ever wanted to do Tableau, or you wanted to do Slack, or maybe you wanted to do some crossover work. Tell us a little bit about how you view that, because I mean, it's just so many choices. I would think that your job as CEO is to say, no, guys, let's do this, but not that.
Absolutely. So the way I'm thinking about it currently is I think there's a bit of it's three-dimensional. It's a bit of a matrix when I think about industries and products. There are industries that are very specialized: healthcare, life sciences, financial services, comms, media, technology, retail, consumer goods, so on and so forth. These are all industries that Salesforce has. And their customers look for partners who have expertise in those respective industries, as you'd expect. And then there's products. And there's products that are industry specific, like Health Cloud or Financial Services Cloud. But there's also products that are pretty agnostic to an industry. Think about a dialer system, a phone system. Doesn't matter who's calling or where you're calling. You're getting inbound calls, you're getting outbound calls. You want to leave voicemails, you want to have voicemail drops, all those things, text messaging. Even CPQ, their pricing product, where you're building, pricing catalogs and pricing rules and approvals and discounts. Yeah, there's things that are unique to an industry, but there's a lot of things that overlap and patterns that match. So we want to tackle Salesforce both through a vertical approach, where we have domain expertise, people that have worked in the healthcare industry, that have worked at places like Cerner or Epic, or done implementations for those products, and they understand how hospital systems and providers operate. Even RNs and people that have worked in a clinical setting too. And then there's the whole product play, where we want people to be product experts in products like CPQ, where we need to help a client think through their pricing strategy in how you price things in Salesforce. There's many ways to go about it, but if you sell a product at tiers, how do you structure that in Salesforce so that it scales up or down, so you can report appropriately? So that's how we're thinking about strategy from that perspective. Right now, we do really well in verticals like healthcare, life sciences, and tech. We want to certainly grow those verticals, but we want to be intentional. We don't just want to jump into them. We want to hire experts there. We want to bring those capabilities in-house. We also want to develop a playbook for how you kind of verticalize into different areas within the ecosystem as well. So that's a big element of how we're thinking about our strategy. In terms of the approach and executing them, there's certainly buy. We can maybe buy a smaller shop that specializes in financial services or retail and consumer goods, but then you run the risk of what's their culture like? How do they treat their customers? How do they bill? What are their incentives? And so we want to make sure that whatever we bring into the organization has a similar DNA to Kicksaw. Otherwise, it's going to create an adverse effect where we're now dealing with a team or a set of members that don't believe in the same values that we do, that don't treat customers the same way that we do, that don't operate with the delivery methodology that we do, that have different contracts that make it hard to renew or engage with the clients because they've been treated or operated differently, and they become accustomed to a certain billing model. So all of those things go through my mind when you think about inorganic growth. And then in terms of other capabilities, there's things that are pretty unique. So Tableau is pretty unique because it was acquired. It wasn't organically built through Salesforce. It's a different UI, different skill set. You've got data analytics and data engineers. I think there's much more of an opportunity to inorganically grow in some of those areas and either acqui-hire or bring in a really small shop and kind of indoctrinate them into the Kicksaw methodology. And there's overlap in customers, where a customer may have a lot of core products and they also have Tableau. And so now we can kind of expand our reach and share a wallet in those companies by being able to offer services across their tech stack.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be very interesting to see where you guys end up on your strategy. And that'll be done by, is it end of April, end of May, sometime in that time?
Yeah, we have a company retreat in May. So we want to try to button up our approach over the next 12 months then. And I mean, for me, I look at this as like, we're always going to evaluate and determine what's the right course and being dynamic. But yeah, our hope is to kind of build some roadmap by the end of May.
Yeah, that'll be exciting. Where do you do your conference, and tell us a bit about what that's like every year?
Sure. So we started our retreat 2 years ago, and we did them initially for the first couple of years in Bend, Oregon. It's where Kyle, my co-founder, is, and we have a small contingent of employees there. And Bend's a beautiful place, beautiful town, tons of opportunity, everything for everyone to do there. It was awesome. Just turns out it's really hard to get there. And almost everyone in the company had to take a layover to get there. And it's not expensive, so it kind of worked out. But people were certainly tired after having to travel for 20 hours in a day with a layover in between, or take a red eye here or flight early in the morning. So we're trying something new this year. We're doing it in Nashville, somewhat central, easy for everyone to get to. Some folks are going to drive. A lot of people are going to fly in, of course. And we really view our retreat as certainly an opportunity to discuss company objectives and outcomes, but really an opportunity to just get to know one another in an environment that you don't normally. As a remote company, almost all of our conversations are Zoom-based. And so when you spend having dinner with someone, you cut through so much of that noise and that ability to build a relationship that you couldn't otherwise do digitally. So we want to give people the opportunity to connect, to learn about each other, to meet everyone in the organization, and do so in a fun manner, whether that's mountain biking, whether people are going on boats, whether people are going for early morning runs or doing yoga classes. We really want to try to appeal to everyone in the company, board game night, whatever it is, and try to just make it a fun 3-day event where people can hear about what's going on in the business, certainly do some business stuff, award people. We do things like our Apex Award and give out some amazing prizes, and just give people an opportunity to connect.
Yeah, the elegance of starting Wrap on Jan 1 or whatever you guys ended up doing of 24 and leading up to the retreat in May. Boy, that worked out really well. I mean, you're going to have some incredible content to share with everybody. I bet you're looking forward to that.
Big time. I'm super excited. I think the company's owed this type of stuff, and I'm really excited to share our vision and where we're going to go and our thoughts and where we're putting some stakes in the ground. I think that'll be very exciting for the team.
Yeah. Well, talk about, if you don't mind, just sort of the intersection of personal and business. You know, typical private equity timeline for us is we'll probably be active partners with you for somewhere between 4 to 6, 7 years. What would be some things that you're proud about, both you and Kyle, kind of on a personal level with your business, the relationship with Rallyday, kind of what we've done to the industry or, been able to help accomplish for the industry's benefit? Give us some dimensions of what winning and success looks like kind of 5, 6, 7 years out.
So a few things come at me immediately. Let's assume this journey is 5 years. I'd love for 5 years and 1 day from now to say, hey, Ryan, how's it going? How have you been doing? And I've developed a relationship with Rallyday that isn't solely based on our outcomes together. A large portion of that is, right? We've got a business relationship, but I love the idea of developing relationships with folks at Rallyday. Everyone that I've met has been great. And I've been able to text with people, have weekly calls with people. And so I feel like I'm having and will have the opportunity to develop friendships for life with smart people who align interests that I can grow from and learn from. That excites me, frankly, is number one. Selfishly, I think other people like Kyle and other leaders of the company get the same opportunity, which I'm excited about too. It's number one. Number two is I'm really excited about some of the economic elements. I think that there's an opportunity for everyone at Kicksaw to participate in this, which gets me really excited about that prospect. I know for my directors team, I know each and every one of their own kind of personal goals and what they want to be doing with their families when they retire, or things that they would love to do if they won the lottery, and so on and so forth. So my goal there is, how can we get as close as possible, if not exceed that, for the leadership team at Kicksaw and for everyone to be rewarded. Everyone at Kicksaw has a stake in the outcome. So I want everyone to be able to say, I would have never been given this opportunity. So that's a big element for me, and something that I certainly want to see happen here. From an industry perspective, I want to measure Kicksaw in a way that I don't know if we'll ever be able to tangibly get these metrics, but 2 ways. One, I want the industry to look around and say, what is Kicksaw doing, or what have they done, and how do we do that? That's what I want people, whether it's our billing model, whether it's our go-to-market model, whether it's how we treat people, whether it's how we've done new things. Secondly, naturally, everyone will have a timeline at Kicksaw, whether it's 3 years, whether it's 19 years, whether it's 1 year. But I want people to go to their new company and say, this is what we did at Kicksaw, and I want to do that here. How many cultures can we impact at Kicksaw is some proxy or vanity metric that I want to look at. I want every single person to leave Kicksaw at some point in time and say, where there's an opportunity for us to do better, for us to treat people better, for us to work better, for us to live better. And I want everyone to hold their new companies to the same degree and quality that Kicksaw we hold for ourselves, and to amplify that. And that should impact millions of lives and how people think about work. So I'm excited about that opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, it's really inspiring. Giving me goosebumps. Well, we're sort of towards the end here. One of the things we're trying to do with this podcast is, a lot of our listeners aren't founders. A lot of us work for an organization, but we all, I think, appreciate the founder's mindset. What advice would you give to somebody who's working at a traditional company in a more traditional role than a founder, in terms of how they show up in a way that might be more consistent with the founder's mindset? What advice would you give people, Kenny, who have that opportunity, both personally and professionally?
That's a great question. I feel like so much of what I believe in is, sometimes I'm like, I don't even, it's hard to concisely communicate that, but I've always just had a belief in a couple things. One is just executing, getting work done, starting the process. So if you're waiting to start something, if you haven't started something, whatever that might be the next initiative, that might be something in your mind that you've been thinking about, I would say just start it. There's no perfect time to start something. It was not ideal for me to start Kicksaw. It didn't make sense for me to start Kicksaw. It just started. And if I had not had that desire to just start doing, Kicksaw would not exist. Number two is, I like this term that I actually learned from Rallyday, which is something that I very much believe in, but I had no way to really appropriately communicate it. But it's escalators over elevators. And it's this concept that if you build an escalator, even if it stops working, you can still climb the stairs. Whereas if an elevator stops working, you're not getting that far down. So I love that concept because I'm a huge believer in incremental progress. And what I care about in an organization is progress. I don't care about success at all costs. I don't care about limiting failure. I care about progress. Progress. In order to progress, you have to fail and you have to succeed. And so those things will come. But if we're not making progress, that to me is failure. Fast and simple. And so how do you get better 1% week over week? What can you do today to get better 1% week over week? That's it. Is it one call? Is it changing your sleeping habits? Is it asking a question that you're afraid to ask before? It doesn't have to be this huge, big, monumental change in how you live and operate. But it's having this constant desire and belief of progress and moving the ball forward.
Last question, which we'll do as a tradition here, and that is, what advice would you give Rallyday to be the partner that you dream of, the partner that's going to be there through thick and thin? I would love to be able to communicate that to our team and to our listeners. What advice would you give us?
Oh man, that's a good question. What I'll say from my experience so far is I feel Rallyday is hitting the mark on a few things. And I'm not just saying that because you're our investors and we're on this call, but I feel that's the case because you've been in my shoes. Nancy's been in my shoes. So many people at Rallyday have been in my shoes. And what I care about is someone who's going to challenge me, someone who's going to hold me accountable, someone who's going to make me a little bit uncomfortable. That's not a bad thing. A lot of people ask me, is it weird having a quote unquote boss? Firstly, I don't view Rallyday as my boss. I view them as my partner, which has been fantastic. But that doesn't mean that you don't ask hard questions. That doesn't mean that you don't have expectations or you don't communicate your thoughts. And I feel what it's done is it's allowed me to view my business differently than I would have previously, because I have someone who's standing right beside me with a founder's mentality, asking questions that maybe I didn't think about asking, or I was so mired in the business day to day that I didn't take a step back, or I have too much context, right? Coming into this and not knowing why can't you do this? Or why haven't you thought about that? So that constant approach of being a partner while still providing that accountability and that desire to be excellent is what I would keep doing. I think that's great. Look, I love the swag, more swag maybe. I'm not going to say no to that. But honestly, I think it's been great so far. I couldn't have asked for a better partner. Like I said, I love coming to work. I love working with Rallyday. So maybe ask me this question in a year and see if I have different advice. But so far, it's been fantastic.
Yeah, I will. I mean, I think that's part of our job is to treat you and believe that you are our core customer, and your needs may change, and retaining our sense of curiosity around how can we serve Kenny and his team more strongly in service to your vision. I will remember that advice, and I assure you that we will ask how to be better every step along the way. And I would say the same thing back to you in terms of holding us accountable. I don't think that accountability has a really bad brand, but what it really means is you're paying attention and making requests and holding our feet to the fire when we make a commitment to fulfill one of your requests. And I would hope that part of that relationship that you want to build with us that is so productive is one based upon that sort of mutual curiosity and commitment to making progress with our relationship. I think that we could wrap up with that advice. And I can't thank you enough for doing this, Kenny. When we talked about doing a podcast here at the firm, it was like just what the world needs, another podcast. But we do have a pretty large community. It's about 20,000 investment bankers and lenders and founders, other business builders. And the message that comes from our founders, we hope, helps other founders go even bigger, as we say, and have the experience of a lifetime. And I think you're a big part of that, Kenny. I think now that we're partners, we sort of share the responsibility of serving the entrepreneurial community together. And I really appreciate you leaning in and being part of this inaugural podcast. Thank you so much.